Okay, take a seat, everybody. So on any typical day, you're gonna be faced with these little temptations that are just gonna pop up. So everybody knows this one. You know, you see it every morning when you get that notification and it says, do you want to snooze? Okay, put it up there, give me my picture, okay? You know that one, the big orange button. You're like, what's 9 more minutes, right? And you just tell yourself that like 10 times every morning, right? You get to the end of the episode on the show and you're prompted with that message, okay? What do? Because you only wanted to do one episode, but this might turn into a TV series marathon that lasts all night. This one is gonna tell you how old you are, okay? You open up your phone, which one are you pressing when you go to that phone? That'll tell you your age right there. But you think like, oh, it's just a button, right? No, that is 45 more minutes of your life that you are potentially gonna lose. There's one little temptation that has come up in my life as an adult that's kind of new, and it is ice cream. It just came out of nowhere, and this actually has caused marital problems for Nicole and I, so you need to help us with this, because I don't think about ice cream. I don't think about it unless I know it's in the house. And then I'm like a raccoon at 2 a.m. just hunting it out, looking for it. And so I tell Nicole, I say, babe, can you please just not buy the ice cream? Okay, because it's not a problem if it's not in the house. To which she responds with, well, what if you just practice a little more self-control? What if you did that instead? To which I then respond with some colorful commentary that lands me on the couch for the night while I eat ice cream, questioning all of my life choices. Now this thing, temptation, is very strange because there's something you know you shouldn't want, but you still want it. There's something you know that you shouldn't do, but you still do it. And there's something that you know is not good for you, but it still feels good in the moment. And it's so weird because why would I be tempted by something that I know is bad for me? And yet I am all the time, and I still do it. Now just think about temptation just in your own daily life. You know, think about the little things that just kind of pop up on a day-to-day basis. So maybe it is just the phone. You know you're just getting on it way too much for way too long. Social media, it's just a massive distraction. It can be food. You know, you kind of go towards that food in the pantry you know you're not supposed to. TV, online shopping. Some of you guys, you got to delete that Amazon app immediately, okay? The husbands are like, amen. There's one particular temptation though, that maybe crossed your mind as you were thinking about some of these different ones. And it is sexual temptation. Now, unless you have found a way to live completely under a rock and away from all of society, you may have noticed that you can find this anywhere. Because like in the past, you might have had to go to a certain place or buy a certain product, but now on your phone, you have a bottomless pit of websites and content. Any social media platform, there's thirst traps, there's bots, there's DMs that are slipping in, advertisements, movies, TV series, video games, just caked with this sexual content, even clothing and fashion that is highly suggestive. And sometimes we get so accustomed to this that we don't even notice that we are just swimming in this highly sexualized culture. Now, already at this moment in the message, I need to pause because I know what a lot of people are thinking right now. You are thinking, oh, here it comes, that message. Oh, you know what message I'm talking about. This is the anti-sex message, right? Right? This is the fuddy-duddy, prude, cranky Christians talking about all the things you can't do. And so you're already mentally preparing yourself for this. And this is what is interesting about this, though. You read through Proverbs, it can even feel a little bit negative. There's so much content around this idea of sexual temptation. And you see these verses that are like, watch out. Don't do this. This is not going to go well for you. And anytime we talk about this topic in church, it always just kind of feels like, no, here's all the bad stuff. And then you have a lot of people, maybe you even feel this way today, where it's kind of like, well, okay, yes, there's a lot of sexual content in our culture today, but is that really such a bad thing? Like, is it really such a problem? Because at the end of the day, like, if there's consent, if you're not hurting anybody, if you're doing it in the privacy of your own home, like, you do you. Why are we so quick to judge people? Knowing that's how a lot of times we think, I have to actually take a few minutes to fix something. I want to fix once and for all how we think about this topic. Because even Christians get weirdly sideways on all of this. So we're going to fix this right now, once and for all. Okay, you're welcome. Here we go. So I need to take a few minutes to talk about God's good design. That's what we're going to lean into here. And to do that, we actually have to go all the way back to the beginning of the Bible. And what you see here is this picture of how God started it all. He creates this first man, and he has this moment where God's like, you know what? I don't want this guy to be alone. I'm going to make this dude a companion, somebody he can do life with, so he creates the first woman. And then God officiates the first ever marriage in human history. Adam and Eve are brought together into this beautiful new relationship that God creates. And this is why we see this in Genesis 2. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. So God designs a permanent, exclusive, enduring relationship between a man and a woman that reflects God's very nature and his love and his commitment. Even that concept of one flesh is massive. It's talking about a spiritual and an emotional and this physical intimacy that goes far beyond anything we could even understand, to the depths of the soul. Even one theologian, he describes sex in particular as the mingling of souls. And so there's so much more to this than just physical pleasure. So that even the next verse, it says Adam and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. So there must not have been love handles in the Garden of Eden or something, I don't know. But you see here, God's design, his desire is for marriage and even sex to be this beautiful shared experience of total freedom and joy and vulnerability, acceptance and love. And as you read through the Bible, it adds more color to this picture to help us appreciate God's heart behind this. So Solomon even writes another book in the Bible called Song of Songs. And this entire book is celebrating the sexual passion of a young couple, if you can believe that. So look at a couple of these verses from this book. Kiss me and kiss me again, for your caresses are sweeter than wine. Look at this. Our bed is verdant. Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Now, I don't even know what that means. Apparently that was a compliment at that time. Men, I do not suggest that you try that one yourselves. But now we get to Proverbs. Again, this book we've been leaning into this fall, and Solomon at this very moment is like, I want you to understand the heart of God. I want you to know really what he wants for you. This is his good design. And so in Proverbs 5, it says this: may your fountain be blessed. May you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breasts satisfy you always. May you ever be intoxicated with her love. Now, I just read the Bible, y'all. Those are words inspired by God himself. And God is saying, I want you to get drunk on passionate love. I want you to drink deeply of pleasure and intimacy with your spouse. God is even saying, I didn't just make them for milk, I made them for fun. I heard a couple amens. Here's what we got to understand. Again, I'm fixing something in our minds right now. Please get this fixed. God is not a Scrooge. He's not some fuddy-duddy. He is not a Debbie Downer. He designed sexual intimacy as something to be celebrated, to be enjoyed. He designed it to be this powerful experience of pleasure and fun and intimacy and closeness for a couple. Now, this idea of design is so important because the way something is designed determines how you use it. Okay, so I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on this. So this is the Brian who went to public school version, okay? So I have to simplify it a little bit. But nuclear fission, this is a fascinating, just scientific process. So this is where the nucleus of an atom is actually split into two. And when that happens, it creates this mini explosion, which then causes a chain reaction of other mini explosions and other atoms. And the chain reaction can be huge. So just to give you some perspective on how powerful this process is, 1 single gram of uranium that goes through a process of nuclear fission has the same power as 20 tons of TNT. Massive, massive power. And because this process is so powerful, you need something to contain it. And this is why we have nuclear reactors. Okay, so a nuclear reactor is a machine that actually can contain and channel nuclear energy so that instead of being destructive, it can be constructive. 1 single reactor could power millions and millions of homes. It's just unbelievable. Now, what happens though, when you have nuclear fission that does not have a container, you know what you get? An atomic bomb. And you see, instead of controlling the chain reaction and channeling that energy, it ends up just going everywhere. And probably the most famous example of this would be Hiroshima, where you see this place was left as a desolate wasteland. And it's not even just the blast that is so powerful. There is radiation that spills everywhere from a nuclear explosion. And sometimes places are uninhabitable for decades because of it. So nuclear power, when it's properly contained, is one of the most effective forms of power ever discovered. But when it's not properly handled, it is literally one of the most destructive forms of power known to man. And here's where I'm going with this. Sex is not just starting a little fire in your backyard so you can make s'mores. No, it is a nuclear reaction in your life. You are putting the atoms of your soul into a chain reaction, and you are creating supernatural power with another person. Now, this is why Solomon says back in the Song of Songs, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. See, the nuclear power of sexual passion is so great that it requires that it be properly contained. And the only container that is strong enough to handle the power of this passion is the container God designed, which is marriage. Marriage is the only container that can hold that power in and channel it towards intimacy and strengthening a relationship and unifying a couple and growing them together. Any other container, it's not strong enough. So a dating relationship, a hookup, or any other type of thing, it can't handle the power. So what happens is you get nuclear waste and radiation that spills all out over your soul. And this is the big idea. Solomon is saying, if you want to thrive in life, you absolutely must make sure that you handle the sexual dynamics of your life very carefully. You better make sure you have the right container. Now, this is what is so fascinating about everything the Bible says. All of the research only confirms this, even today. So here's the irony of the cultural moment that we live in today. We have more access to sexual content and experiences than we have ever had in human history. And even at this moment, marriage rates are at the lowest they have ever been since we started tracking this data, because why get married to somebody? It's just a piece of paper. Why would you want to be stuck with somebody your entire life? And now we've elevated our value of sexual expression. We've even become normalizing sexual expression, experience, and exposure for kids. But every single piece of research shows this. People are more sexually dissatisfied than they have ever been. there's higher rates of sexual dysfunction. And the greatest irony of all, probably, people today are having less sex than they have ever had before. So in our pursuit for sexual gratification and pleasure, every single metric is going in the wrong direction. Except for one group of people. There's some other studies that have come out, and what they have found is that the most sexually satisfied people are Christian married couples. Now, here's just what they found. They have more frequent sex, report higher satisfaction levels. The most sexually satisfied people on earth are people who have one sexual partner who is also their spouse, who they did not sleep with until they were married. Women, they have found, who go to church and pray and have a husband who does the same, report being 2 times more sexually satisfied. For the men, it's 4 times more. What if God knows what he's talking about? What if, instead of trying to prevent pleasure, God is trying to protect it in your life? What if he's even trying to maximize it for you? What if, instead of trying to withhold something from you, God is trying to help you in this area of your life? So this is what Solomon says in Proverbs. God has a beautiful design for this. It's a wonderful gift, and you can thrive in this. But there is one fact that we just have to acknowledge. While that is true, you will be tempted in this area of your life. There is very real, undeniable, sometimes even unavoidable sexual temptation that will come your way in your life. There are things that you will know you shouldn't want that you are going to want. There's things that you know you shouldn't do that you are going to want to do. And there are going to be things that feel really good that are actually not good for you. And so we just have to acknowledge this. This is a fact of life. It's not something to feel guilty about. It's just something we have to acknowledge. And so Solomon, talking about sexual temptation, this is the context of this verse, says, wisdom will save you. So Solomon is saying, wisdom, skill in this area is going to protect you from spilling nuclear waste all over your life. So now we have to ask the question, how can we thrive in this area of our lives? How can we experience what God really wants for us? So let's take a minute here and talk about wisdom for sexual temptation. And the Bible has so much to say about this. And one of the first things you will see that the Bible says is you have to make sure that you don't fight, you flee. Now, back into Proverbs, this is what Solomon says. Again, talking about sexual temptation here. He says, stay away from her. This is like an illicit relationship. Don't go near the door of her house. Run away. Now, go even in the New Testament. Look at this same kind of theme. 1 Corinthians, flee from sexual immorality. Now, this is the key idea of the Bible around this topic. The key idea is never assume you are stronger than sexual temptation. Maybe there's some people in here, you follow boxing, you kind of like the fighting athletics, but boxing has 17 different weight classes, 17. And the heart behind that is to make sure the fights are as fair as possible. That's why they do it. So on the lightest side of the men's weight classes is straw weight. So that's 105 pounds or less. Okay, these are the little guys. But then you go all the way up to heavyweights. This is 200 pounds or more. And again, they categorize every guy so the fight can be as fair as possible. So there's this guy, Jorge Mataferro. He's 4'11", 100 pounds, and has 300 pounds of power in his punch. Now, I still wouldn't want to take that guy, but he's a little dude. Now, this next guy is Nikolai Valuev. He is 7 feet tall, 328 pounds, and his punch has 1,200 pounds of power in it. And this is what the Bible says. Sexual temptation is a 7-foot, 300-pound heavyweight world champion, and it is a fight that you do not want. It is a fight that you cannot win. You do not want to get close to this, which is why the Bible says every time you need to run, Forrest, run. You need for your life. Do not engage, okay? And really, the key idea behind this, another point here, do not fight temptation tomorrow that you can flee today. So even right now, when you think about just your own life, where can you eliminate temptation before it even happens? How can you make sure you don't even end up on the doorstep of that house? Every person in here, you'll notice you've got patterns in your life. So for some of us in here, you notice when you're alone at that certain time, maybe with your phone, with a computer, it just doesn't usually go in the right direction. Others of us in here, you're dating somebody, and when you end up at their place at that time in those ways, it just ends up going places that you didn't really hope it would, but it does. You pass the romance novel section in the bookstore. That social media platform is just not good for you. Some of us in here, it's just the fact that you have somebody's phone number on your phone. It just creates a temptation for you. So where are you setting yourself up for a fight that you can't win? Where are you putting yourself in a place where you're set up to fail? Some of us in here, real talk, you got to get yourself a dumb phone. No, it is T9 texting for you. Like, you just have to. You can't win that fight right now. That's just not the fight for you. Some of us, it's software on the computer. Some of us, it's leaving even maybe computers and stuff at our workplace. It's getting off certain apps. The best way to defeat temptation in your life is to avoid it as much as you possibly can. That's how you fight that fight. You run. Now, that's the first thing. But there's actually a second thing that we can lean into here too. And what we see is you want to make sure you stop Satan with sex. Now, let me explain where I'm going with this. New Testament, Paul in 1 Corinthians says this: the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gets authority over her body, or gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. We cannot possibly comprehend how earth-shattering this would be for Paul to write this in the first century. You see, in the first century, men had all the power. They could do whatever they wanted to basically any woman. And now Paul says that is not God's way. He says there must be mutual consent and consensual intimacy in the marriage context. And really the key idea here that we're driving at is only give your body to someone you have given your life to. Because of the nuclear power of sex, it needs to have the proper container. And so marriage is God's design for committing your life to another person so you can properly handle the power of sexual intimacy and passion. Now, Paul goes on here in verse 5. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations except by mutual consent for a limited time, so that you can devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again so that, key line here, Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Now again, let me drive to the heart of this. You see the heart of God right here. He says, I don't want you depriving each other. What is God saying? He's saying, I want you to be intimate. God is saying, thou shalt have sex, okay? Command by God. Now, why does Paul have to write this? Because it is very easy, a lot of us, you know this, it's very easy for couples to use sex as a weapon against each other. It becomes a tool of manipulation. You withhold it from each other, and it becomes this source of hurt feelings and bitterness and resentment in your most important relationship. For the married people in this room, you have to hear this. This is very important for you to understand. You are the only legitimate source of sexual intimacy for your spouse. Let me say that one more time. If you are married here today, you are the only legitimate source of sexual intimacy for your spouse. That is a lot of power to have in someone's life. And you need to wield that very carefully. And really, Christians should view this as a holy responsibility. It's a privilege and it's a gift and an opportunity to serve and love your spouse. And one of the reasons Paul says that you need to make sexual intimacy a priority in your marriage is because you have less self-control than you think. You are the weight champion. You don't win this fight. You can't do it. And so you have an enemy now who is going to exploit that weakness in your life. He knows your weak spots. And Satan would love nothing more than to break up as many marriages as he possibly could. He would love nothing more than that. And one of his primary weapons against you is sexual temptation. He's going to slip right in there and start using it against you. And so what we see here is sex is actually protection for a marriage. It reinforces the walls. It puts up the gates. It provides protection against spiritual attack from Satan himself. And now Paul adds an important caveat here, okay? So understand this, guys. He says, yes, there may be times in your marriage where you need to put a pause on intimacy. You're going through a serious tragedy as a family, and you need some time just to work that out and figure it out. It's just not the time for that stuff. You're going through a rough patch in your marriage. And the intimacy is just not working in the right way. So you got to get some things figured out before it can be healthy again. You have a serious illness in the family. And sometimes it's not even possible because of just different dynamics that you're going through with that. So he says, yes, that may need to happen, but you better make sure you are on the same page together about that. Because what ends up happening is that becomes the new normal then. And so many marriages slip into what I call sexual stalemate. And it's just what it is then. And there's all sorts of feelings and angers and resentments about that never get worked out. And crazy enough, can you even believe that this is in the Bible? That God is saying, hey, yes, sometimes you need to pray more, but you know what the solution is sometimes? It's not more prayer, it's more sex. Like, that's your solution. Okay, thank one person believes the Bible. That's literally what Paul's just saying here. You know, like, it's what you got to do. Now, this, for the married couples in here, this might be a question worth leaning into together. Maybe you want to ask each other this today. How can I better serve you when it comes to our sexual intimacy? Now, depending on where your marriage is right now, that may be a very fun conversation, or a hard one. And there might need some time to really work some things out and talk through some things that you haven't been comfortable sharing, but that could be a very helpful question to lean into. Now, I know this topic brings up so many thoughts and questions in people's minds, and I don't have a series right now. I got one sermon. So I'm going to try and hit as many things as I possibly can here with my last couple minutes. So I want to talk about the whatabouts now for just a couple minutes. Okay? Somebody here today, this might be going through your mind. I'm single, so I'm supposed to just not be sexually active at all? Emojis, emojis, emojis. That's how you're feeling right now. Now, there's so many people get bent out of shape about this teaching because they go, oh, okay, Brian, so all the married people get to have all the fun and everybody else just doesn't get to have anything. And let me just say this, that attitude right there points to a massive lie that has become pervasive in our culture. And the lie is you can't be fulfilled without being sexually active. And we literally believe this, like I can't be happy without sex in my life. And that shows you how far our culture has fallen in this area. The Bible teaches that singleness and the abstinence that comes with it is just as legitimate as marriage. It's an equally valid way to live your life. And many people choose that, or that ends up being their circumstances. So where sexual intimacy is a way to harness the nuclear power of sexual passion in a marriage, sexual purity is the proper container for a single person. And the reason that people don't believe that is because very few people actually live that. You guys need to know, there is so much joy and fulfillment in living from a pure heart and a pure body. It is very fulfilling, and God has set it up that way. And if you are single here today, you are not married, I'm telling you, if you are trying to get sexual fulfillment in some way, you are going to be disappointed. It won't work. You are going to spill radiation on your soul. And if you're somebody in here, you're like, well, Brian, how am I supposed to handle my urges? Like, the temptations are too big. Well, Paul's like, great. I have a very easy solution for you. Look what Paul says. But if they can't control themselves, if you can't keep your pants on, Paul says, great, go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. Okay, great. You can't handle your passions? Go ahead and put a ring on it and have at it, okay? There's your solution. Let me go to another thing here right now, though. Somebody today, you might be thinking this. I'm currently sleeping with someone I'm not married to, but if I tell them I want to stop, I'm afraid it will damage the relationship. Now, let me tell you, based on that comment alone, you are already damaging that relationship. You don't have the proper container for the nuclear power of what you are sharing with that person. And the fact that you are afraid of their response, the fact that you're feeling that way, already shows that relationship is broken. Because you think, well, no, I have to give them what they want. And I would say if they are demanding sin from you, they are not loving you. And if you are giving sin to them, you are not loving them. And so this is a moment for real talk with this person you're with. And you say, listen, I am so sorry. I have been sinning against you. And I apologize. And it needs to stop. And if you don't respect or agree with this decision, then this relationship will not work because we do not worship the same God. You need to love them. This might be another question going through somebody's mind right now. I use pornography, but is that really a problem? Again, here's the thought process around this. Well, okay, it's my own business. Man, I'm not hurting anyone. It really kind of helps just take the edge off with all that temptation stuff. Well, let's just take a step back here for a minute. How did God design sex? He designed it to be a profoundly supernatural connection that fosters lifelong intimacy and love. That's the design of God. So what is porn then? I would say it is an empty counterfeit. Worse than that, actually. I was even trying to put words together to just encapsulate this so this didn't feel so dry. And I'm like, what is pornography really? Here's what I would say it is. It's desire without devotion. It's lust without love. It's pleasure without promise. It's fantasy without fidelity. It's arousal without attachment. It's consumption without communion. It's hunger without holiness. It's fire without a foundation. It's indulgence without intimacy. And it is a plague on the human race that breaks the heart of God. Nervous claps in the room for all the online people. Proverbs 6, this is in the context of sexual temptation. Can a man scoop fire in his lap without his clothes being burned? The answer, of course, being, can someone use pornography without getting nuclear waste on their soul? You cannot. There is no healthy amount of pornography use that's even possible. It's just toxic to the core. And I feel like this is becoming common knowledge, but this might be new information for some people here today. Research has found that pornography works the same way as hard drugs. It is highly addictive. It seriously desensitizes you. It actually rewires your brain so you begin to have problems experiencing sexual intimacy with a real person. But to me, the most heartbreaking thing about pornography is that it trains you to not see people as image bearers of God who have infinite worth, but instead it trains you to see people as objects for your own personal self-gratification. And that is one of the most dehumanizing things you could possibly do to another person. Now, this is what I know. For so many of us here, this has been a part of your story. And maybe it wasn't even something you were looking for. It's one of those things you fell into. For some of us here, this is a part of your story right now. And I know people are thinking about it differently. For those where you would say, Brian, I never really felt like pornography was a problem, please hear me today. It is a massive problem. It is doing way more damage in your life than you could possibly understand. I know, though, there's a lot of people in here in this room today. You know it's a problem already. And you're really struggling with it. And you have tried to stop, and you are losing this fight. You are not winning this fight right now. It is beating you to a pulp. And this is what I love, what Solomon says in Proverbs. He says, whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. There is so much power in just acknowledging our struggles. And not just bringing them before God, but bringing them before people. And so I would encourage some of you guys, maybe you've been afraid to use this word, but I think this is actually going to help you see some freedom. You don't struggle with pornography. You are addicted to it. It has way more power over you than you even want to admit. It's controlling your life. And you need help getting free. And this is actually why we have an incredible ministry that meets every single Tuesday night at this church. It's called Celebrate Recovery. And this is a special environment for people to get in a space where you can get freedom from some of those real struggles in your life, those hard things that you're trying to get over, and real addictions. And for anybody in here, that may be the step you need to take to start seeing real victory in this area of your life. Let me hit another one here, though. How do I help my kids navigate all the sexual temptation they are facing or will face? So this is for the parents in the room. Let me talk to the parents. Can I please encourage you? Start young. Way younger than you think you need to. My son turned 8 this summer. We officially went at it. And it was the first of what will be ongoing conversations. We did a whole dad day, made this cool experience, but I sat him down. I was like, listen, bro, we're going to lean into it. And so we're talking about all things about what does it mean to honor a woman? And how did God actually design intimacy? And what does it even look like to just be a man of God in this area? And we talked about pornography. I want to be the first one to help him start navigating and figuring this out. The temptation's going to come. My daughter turned 6 this year. My wife, we're talking about all things modesty. How do you honor God with your body? How do you dress in a way that actually glorifies God and doesn't just turn you into a sex object? So my pastoral recommendation to the parents in the room is, 8 years old, you better start going. And there's some great resources, there's some great books and all the things. And I know a lot of us have some older kids in this room. As best as you possibly can, make this a very normal topic to talk about with your kids. You want your kids to know without a shadow of a doubt that you are for them in this area, that you have their back, that you are a safe place for them to process and even talk about their struggles. So parents, please let me encourage you, be the ones that your kids want to go to for this area. And let me say, please let the church be an ally in this, guys. We have a student ministry here at the church. It's all for our middle and high school students. Garage nights, that goes on. Shout out to the students, by the way. Good to see you guys. But guys, every Wednesday night, students are hanging out here and they are going to have time to sit down with a leader who they are going to think is way cooler than you are. And they're going to listen to in ways that they will not listen to you at this age. But that leader is going to have the same unifying message for them as you want them to hear about honoring God and living out his purposes. So please let us be your ally in this thing. Now there's one more thing that I know is going through people's minds right now. This is the one last what about. Brian, I've already failed so much. Man, I know for so many people here today, this is a hard message for you. Because it brought about certain emotions. It brought about memories. It's brought up some pain. Pain of regret in your life. Pain of your past. Honestly, even pain of struggles that you are navigating right now. And I didn't even have time today to speak to the fact that a lot of us in here, you have been the victim of somebody else's temptation. Because you've experienced abuse, you've been violated, you've been cheated. And I know for so many people, marriages and families have been devastated by the nuclear power of what this can cause. Regardless of the individual stories though, I know the amount of shame and embarrassment in this area of our lives can just be overwhelming. And for a lot of us, you have scars that go down to your soul. And some of us, there are stains on your life that you feel like you can't even wash out. There was a moment in Jesus' life where he started teaching and a crowd started forming. And at this moment while he's teaching, a group of guys bring this woman right in front of Jesus. They throw her right in front of him. They say, Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The very act. So what do you think should happen to this lady, Jesus? Now you need to understand this is the first century. Adultery was a capital offense. Death by stoning. People would literally find big rocks and throw them at someone who committed this offense until they died. And so, they're like, Jesus, what's the verdict? What happens to her? And Jesus doesn't say a word. He actually bends down, it tells us, and just starts doodling in the dirt with his finger. Now, there's a lot of speculation on what Jesus might have been writing. Some scholars believe that he was actually writing the woman's name because he already knew her and her whole story. Some people think he was writing the sins of these guys who brought this woman before him. But regardless, he's sitting there drawing and everybody's like, well, Jesus, what are you going to do? And so finally, Jesus, he gets up. He says, okay, here's what we're going to do. Whoever has never sinned gets to throw the first rock. And he goes right back down to drawing. And one by one, it tells us people drop their rocks and they just start walking away. And eventually, as Jesus is drawing, the entire crowd disappears. He gets up and he looks at this woman. He says, ma'am, has nobody condemned you? She says, nobody. Now this woman is looking God in the eyes. And this woman has failed her. She has failed her kids. She has failed herself. She has failed God. She has spilled nuclear waste all over her life and so many other people. She has devastated God's good design. What is Jesus going to say to this woman? Well, we see Jesus said to her, neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin. Now, for those of us in here where you're feeling some shame, you're feeling embarrassed, humiliated, like a failure, these are the words of Jesus to you. I do not condemn you. I do not condemn you. I do not condemn you. And it's even better than that, because it's not just that Jesus doesn't condemn us. Paul in the New Testament talks about how so many of us have failed in this fight. We have fallen so far short of God's standard. We have not lived up to what he's called us to, what he wants for us, particularly in this area of our lives. But then Paul says, because of what Jesus has done for us, he says, and that is what some of you were. But you were washed, You were sanctified. That means set apart. You were justified. That means you were made right in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. See, that's what you were. That's what you did. That is not who you are today. That is not who God has made you to be. So today you need to know you are washed clean in Jesus. You are made new in Jesus. You are pure in Jesus. And so today is not a day of regret. Today is not a day of sorrow. This is a day of celebration, where we celebrate the goodness of God and how he has made us new and washed us clean. And so, church, I want to invite us to even stand right now. We're going to sing out to our God and thank him for cleansing us and making us whole. Let's sing together.